Hey, this is Booker T, 5-time WCW champion, and you're listening to It's a Work Podcast with Tristin and Ian. Now, can you dig that, sucker?
Make it sexier, we don't eat.
Welcome, everyone, to the It's a Work Podcast, the only podcast on the internet where we get all of our information from Botchamania. I'm one half of your host, Tristan Hayes, and the other half is one Mr.
Ian Matthews.
Yeah, I didn't even tell him I was going to throw it to him. He's smooth as motherfucking taboo. How you doing, dude?
What's up, man? It's episode 4. I'm super excited. We have had a ton of developments since we've been off with the 4th of July holiday. Ton of topics going on in wrestling. We got Booker T. It's not going to be on this episode. We're saving it because he's the five-time
WCW Champion.
That's right, man. So life is good right now, man. I'm ready to talk about some wrestling.
With all the wrestling that's been on TV, on pay-per-view, and all the wrestling that I've personally done over the last week, I think we've got a plethora of things to talk about, man. And you know what? I'm surprised I'm not too worn out. I got this second, third, maybe even it's a fourth wind. I don't know. But let's do this thing tonight.
Don't forget, we're available on all of your favorite podcatchers. Download us on iTunes, hit subscribe, check us out on YouTube, and please, please, please send your feedback.
And that's the shameless plug for the evening, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start off the podcast on a positive note, dude. How about the fact that Tyson Kidd is back in the world of professional wrestling? Now, unfortunately, it's not in the ring, but it's been 2 years since his injury, and he is now officially, once again, a WWE employee backstage as a producer on SmackDown.
No, it's great to have him back. I know we've talked about Total Divas on the podcast. You're a huge fan. He's a great personality. Obviously, a tremendous worker in the ring. Totally respect what he's doing. So it's good to have him back. But I'm not going to lie. When you were like, oh, look it, he's back. Kid's back. I was disappointed because you didn't mention Rusev made his return on SmackDown. Now, we're not going to necessarily talk about SmackDown on this episode. We're going to focus on Raw, and we're going to focus on the upcoming pay-per-view this weekend. But it was great to see Rusev, Ruru, the King Ross spirit animal. If you guys check out What Culture, I love to see Rusev back.
Listen, I'm a fan of Rusev just like anybody else is, but he's a Nashville Predators fan, so him and I got heat because I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan.
Dude, I saw that mansion that he lives in for like $600,000. I can move to Nashville. I would like to buy that house. We should move in together. We can make one of those rooms our podcast studio. And God, even as I say it, it just sounds weird.
Pretty
it sounds like a
sure
weird
you just proposed me. So apparently we're moving to Nashville. We're still going to be Blackhawks fans. I don't even know if you give a damn about hockey, but we're going to move next door to Rusev and constantly taunt him by shooting eggs at him with a catapult, yelling Machka, and recording our podcast together because now we're roommates.
Yeah, no, that's fair because he needs some new friends because Lana is buried so deep. But
up of the ass of the SmackDown women's division.
But yeah, she is buried. They buried her. Welcome back. But no, at the end of the day, it's funny because I can take any topic that you want to talk about and bring it back to Rusev.
So now that you're done with your Rusev boner for the week, why don't we move on to another topic? How about we talk about what happened last week, what everybody's been talking about with the Ball family on Miz TV?
Yeah, it's interesting. You sent me an article. It looks like someone got fired. I can't think of that person's name. Can you help me out here?
That would be one Mr. Billy Kidman. I don't know how much validity there is to this, but the article that I read said that the audio producer / supervisor in the production truck is Mr. Billy Kidman, and that he was the one that took the fall for this. Which, I mean, we discuss it and we ask the opinion of Booker T on our next episode, what he feels about it. But I've kind of noticed something a little suspicious is the fact that most live television shows have anywhere from a 3 to 5 to 7 second delay. So how did this happen? How did this mistake happen? Not once, but twice, and slip through both times.
Yeah, definitely a big mistake by the WWE as they're trying to grow their brand and bring on new sponsorships.
But is it a mistake? Was it done intentionally just for the media? Because they apologized the next day. And of course, as we know in this PG kindergarten world that we live in, an apology means that you can get away with almost anything, because most people think it's better to ask forgiveness than it is permission. Was this an accident, or did they just let this happen for the attention?
Is that like the Ricky Bobby, with all due respect, and then I can say whatever I want to you? No, I mean,
it's not the Geneva Convention.
No, I don't want to speculate on whether they did this on purpose or not. I think the main thing to focus on, and it's really interesting because it's great to hear, Booker T, someone who is stepping up in his community, running for mayor in an upcoming election, really trying to have a hand in how the young people in his community, like I mentioned before, are being brought up. He specifically said he wants to, eradicate that word from television and media sources. He didn't necessarily go after hip hop, but he did, blame hip hop. I love hip hop. He definitely is someone that listens to it as well. But if it was the WWE looking for publicity, it's publicity in all the wrong ways. Again, as they're trying to grow their brand and bring on new sponsors, especially with a PG type attitude. And we don't have the things that they were going out and doing during the Attitude Era. It's a very PG mentality.
But the whole PG mentality was brought on for the most part when Linda McMahon was running for Senate. Now she doesn't have to do that. Now she works in the White House of all places, and they've been kind of lax on that. Is this them relaxing a little more? Are they trying to get away with a stunt?
Well, it might be, and it's funny because, not to go back to SmackDown Live, but when we look at the rap battle between the Usos and New Day, one of the best lines was referencing Xavier Woods and the Page video. And, it's like, okay, I get it. You have to walk that line, but it's a fine line. And I think the use of that word, he should be fired. I hope it wasn't intentional on the WWE's part. And it's something that we just shouldn't see on TV at all in today's day and age.
Well, I'll end it by saying that if he wasn't fired for letting it slide on purpose, I hope it was at least fired for sleeping on the job, because that got through. It shouldn't have got through, and I hope it never does again.
I agree.
So since we're still on the topic of the WWE, before we move on to somewhere else, why don't we talk about this week's Raw and the effects that it'll have on the pay-per-view this upcoming Sunday?
The interesting thing about Raw this week is I actually liked it better than SmackDown, and there's not a lot of weeks where I can say I enjoyed from end to end the Raw product more than I did the SmackDown Live product. But I will say that I love that they opened the show with Enzo. I hope at the end of the day they find something interesting to do with Enzo. I think that through this feud and falling out that he's had with Cass, hopefully they've seen that he is a great promo, potentially not the best worker in the ring, but still a great promo. So I love that the show was opened by that.
Do you think Enzo is better suited for 205 Live? They seem to lack a bit of personality and mic work over there. Do you think he could be more beneficial to that than he would Raw or SmackDown or anywhere else in the company?
It's a really good fit, but I think a lot of people would agree that 205 Live needs a complete kind of change, or, not necessarily rebranding. I mean, if you like the purple ropes, that's fine. But the crowd, because of the time of the show, is just not into it, and it just needs to maybe move into its own entity, kind of like an NXT, and just have a better storyline production.
I don't think it needs to move it into its own entity. Before we move on, I just want to make the point that one of the things that WCW did right during their run was their cruiserweight division and their use of the cruiserweights. And it never had its own show. It never had its own ropes or own time. It was always just an integral part of what was Monday Night Nitro. So maybe WWE needs to stop trying to force it to be its own entity and for lack of a better term, segregate it from the rest of the company. You know what? Just let it be a part of Raw. Let it be, its own thing. Don't change the ropes. Don't change the canvas. Stop giving us these long breaks with intros and promos that are obviously being done just while they change the ropes and canvas. Make it more apart. Make it feel like it belongs.
So one of the podcasts that I love to listen to is Going in Raw, and they've talked about this, and I wonder what your opinion is. I mean, if you do that and make it part of the regular show, and I agree where, we had Mean Gene Okerlund recently say that the 3-hour production of Raw is challenging for the writers, and I think the cruiserweights can bring a certain amount of excitement to the show, especially in those lulls or down periods. And so, do you have them integrate their storylines with just normal Raw competitors? And is it a mix, or do they still only wrestle other cruiserweights?
See, Finn Balor, Enzo Amore, these guys are technically cruiserweights, and they are incorporated perfectly fine in with the rest of the roster, so I don't see why that they couldn't do that with the rest of the 205. But still, the championship that they mainly go after is the Cruiserweight Championship. Again, to go back to WCW, the cruiserweights there went out of their own division. They had stuff like the TV and US title that they could go after, but the cruiserweight division was their bread and butter, as was the title.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
So with that being said, and Enzo Amore's promo and Big Cass's response, what do you feel is going to go down with the match at Great Balls of Fire?
Man, it's tough. It's almost got to be a squash match. I mean, I see it as like a pre-show type match just because it should be just an absolute beating. I mean, you want to see Enzo fight back and play the role of, the resilient wrestler. We want to see some false finishes. We want to see him kick out and show that he is the determined and tenacious person that he said he was during his promo at Raw. But at the same time, got to have Cass just destroy him.
No, I agree, and unfortunately I think it's something that is better suited for the pre-show. There's a lot of emotion involved in it, and I get it. The promo build-up has been tremendous thanks to Enzo Amore in general. Not saying that Big Cass can't talk, but we know who spits hot fire on the microphone between the two of them. My only problem is I just don't think it's a good in-ring matchup one-on-one.
So have you heard, and I want to move off this topic after this, have you heard, though, that while Enzo is better on the mic, that backstage it's actually Cass writing most of the promos?
No, I haven't heard that. What I have heard is that the two of them had lived together for a long time, and they used to have a Tuesday night tradition of sitting down and writing promos and one-liners and stuff for just about any situation that could possibly come up. So who knows? We all hear different things, and we all see different things. Could be one, could be another.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I've heard that somewhere. I definitely got to check my sources, but it'd be interesting, especially with Enzo's comment like, hey, you're just a tagline that I wrote. I'd like to see Cass really be able to grow as a heel and work on developing his character, because he really does have the look that Vince McMahon likes, right? I mean, he is 7 foot tall. He's a big bad boy, and he moves well in the ring. I've always enjoyed their work together, so I'm curious to see if he can stand alone. But I think his promo will be a big part of standing alone. Now, I want to talk about promos. I'm kind of skipping a topic, but I'm going to go right into Bray Wyatt and just say that I am so tired of these useless videos from Bray Wyatt when we all know at the end of the day he is probably going to lose to Seth Rollins. I don't think he came out of the Randy Orton feud looking strong. And so I just don't understand why we keep getting Bray Wyatt talking like he's a god, but not being booked like they booked The Undertaker.
See, this is one of the times where you and I differ a little bit, and I'm not disagreeing with you about the promos. I'm disagreeing with you in the fact that I think Great Balls of Fire, he might actually be the one going over on this one. I don't see any real momentum for either one of these guys. I feel like the storyline is almost like a time waster and a time killer for the both of them, because they have so much great talent on Raw that they literally don't have something for everyone to do. When it comes to booking him like The Undertaker, could anybody ever really be booked by The Undertaker? We spent a lot of time with a guy by the name of Kevin Thorne, who was once Mordecai in the WWE. We spent a lot of time with him this past weekend, and for a little while, he was tapped to be booked as the new version of The Undertaker, and that didn't go so well. So why should it, Bray Wyatt being tapped to be the next in line to take over for The Undertaker go well? Some of these characters are just once-in-a-lifetime characters, and it's not the fault of the people who WWE tries to use to replace them, whether it succeeds or fails. Sometimes it's just the idea itself of trying to replace that person that makes it doomed to fail.
So I think timing is a critical component, right? And the timing for Mordecai, I don't necessarily know was right. But the timing for Bray Wyatt right now, I think, is right, because The Undertaker, for all intents and purposes, is done in the ring, right? We've talked in the past about how well-developed a character we both think Bray Wyatt is, so I just don't understand why he's kind of toiling in these weird feuds that I feel like are kind of meaningless, and to your point, just time killers. When he's a guy, we talked about on the last episode, championships and what their relevancy is today. And I think Bray is one of those guys where he doesn't need a title to be relevant, but he does need to be, for lack of a better term, just an absolute badass, right? He has to come off as someone that can dominate opponents in the ring. And I think the expectation is like wishy-washy, like maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't. But I think it needs to be more solidified and more well thought out, with his back and forth with people. And the 50-50 booking, I think, is working against someone like Bray Wyatt.
Well, you're calling it now. You're saying Seth Rollins. I'm saying it's Bray Wyatt on that one. But you're also saying there's been some 50-50 booking, and that's a good way that we can transition into Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns has been very strong, and it seems like the only thing that's been able to stop him has been Braun Strowman. The fans have taken to Braun Strowman when they really, I don't think, were intended to by the company. What do you think about this one?
I love Braun Strowman. I was watching a What Culture video over the weekend, and I think it was like people that could be champion or should be champion. I apologize, I don't have my reference on point, but, love What Culture Wrestling in their YouTube page. Out of the 5 people, I think number 3 was Braun Strowman, and I like that idea. I think Braun Strowman has, to your point, the crowd behind him. Definitely could be a better worker in the ring, but we've seen the WWE continuously work around the shortcomings of wrestlers who can't, necessarily string together a technical or a technically sound match. But I like the idea of Braun Strowman. I'm not sure exactly who's going to go over here. I'm going to say that it's Roman, because I think they're positioning Roman for SummerSlam with Brock Lesnar.
Well, here's a question. Does it hurt either guy to lose this match, honestly, in the end?
No, at this point it doesn't. They've both come off pretty bad to the bone. And I want to go back and reference again the Booker T interview that we're going to have on the next episode. So like I said before, don't forget to, hit subscribe, download us from all your favorite podcatchers to make sure that you get that episode. Booker T puts over Roman Reigns and really talks about how he loves, out of everyone in the WWE today, the work that Roman Reigns is doing. And so I haven't come around to it yet, but I do think he will get over in this match, and I think the WWE will continue to push him and, lead to a Lesnar-Reigns type feud. I don't know if it's as soon as SummerSlam or as late as WrestleMania or both, but we'll definitely see it.
So who are you calling in this match between Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns for the
Reigns? I said
match?
It. Reigns, dude.
All right, man. Reigns. To be honest, we're both on the same page with that good. One. So now let's switch the page and move on to the Tag Team Championship match, which was announced on Monday night to be a 30-minute long Iron Man match, which is between the Hardy Boys, Cesaro, and Sheamus.
So if you're asking me who you think I'm going to win, I think Cesaro and Sheamus will come out of this one. But, I'm not really sure. I think it was good for that initial pop to put the titles on the Hardy Boys. But I think the WWE may be eager to split them up and potentially insert Jeff Hardy right into this world title race that we're seeing come together with characters like Strowman, Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, and the others.
Now, if they split them up and they actually get their hands legally on the broken Matt Hardy gimmick, do you think the time between now and the last time he actually did the gimmick, there's been too much of a gap, or do you think people still want it? Do you think people would still respond to it?
Can I ask you, do you still want it?
I kind of do. I kind of want to see what WWE can do with that in their hands. I see it becoming kind of bigger than what it was. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wouldn't be bigger than what it was, because now it would be in the hands of WWE instead of solely in the hands of Matt and Jeff Hardy, as it seemed to be when they were in TNA. But, if nothing else, it could become possibly a merchandise juggernaut like the New Day has been.
Not only do I want it because of the reasons that you just mentioned, but I also want it because it seems like Matt wants it so bad. You can see it in everything that he's doing when he gets on TV. The way he talks, the words, not only the way he talks in terms of cadence, but the words he's using. He is so brokenish. And he is so ready to do this character.
Well, have you ever seen him put himself into something as much as this since Matt Hardy version 1?
It's kind of funny because I was going back and looking at some archives, some TNA stuff online, and when he won the championship for the first time, he kind of did like a all suited up, almost like, I think of it as like almost like a Miz type character where he was like Hollywood or, whatever. Right?
A bit. He was the sensei of Mattitude, and he wanted to get followers that could get behind him and his theories and his ways of life.
Yeah, so, I'm not as well researched as you are on that, but, I definitely saw him suited up, and so, I think he's had different iterations. I don't think he's had something that stuck as much, or maybe even as much fun as Broken is. How cool is it to be like, when he says he's got a premonition and goes, and then scribe, and then the scribe's just like sitting there with his pen and paper, like ready to write, it's so much fun. I
do miss the scribe, the gardener, and Vanguard 1 more than anything.
So I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it all. I'll continue to want to see it. I just hope it doesn't drag on too long. And I can see him having a solid run in the Intercontinental race. Let's be honest, The Miz is doing great work. We can both agree on it. But I'm a little tired of The Miz and Ambrose. The Miz versus a broken Matt Hardy. Boom.
Well, with that then, let's make it quick on the next three before we move on to the main event. How about the Cruiserweight title, Neville versus Akira Tozawa? Who are you calling for that one?
So if it's on the pre-show, I'm going to go with Neville. Which is sad because, again, to our earlier conversation, 205 Live not necessarily getting the love. Cruiserweights not necessarily getting the love. You know, it'd be nice to see him on something not the pre-show, but it is what it is.
How about Little Miss Bliss defending the Women's Championship of Raw against Sasha Banks?
Dude, I love Alexa Bliss. I think it was so cool what they did with Sasha. I wanted to see Sasha, come out strong. I mean, I honestly think that Sasha is the best worker in the women's division on Raw, and so I really hope that she wins it. Alexa's had a good run. I'm ready for a change. I think, Sasha, and then potentially having some dynamic where Bayley is able to change her character. I mentioned this to you, but Bayley was on the Steve Austin podcast, and they had an interesting conversation about just like where she is right now. And she's definitely ready for a change. I wouldn't mind seeing her and Sasha again. I mean, I think they put on one of the best matches, at NXT Brooklyn. Best women matches, match of the year quality. And I think that we could use that right now in the women's division. Alexa Bliss, awesome character work, but I'm ready to see Sasha Banks kind of claim that and get the recognition that she deserves.
Well, then we'll move on from that, and your thoughts on the Intercontinental Championship match. As you've already said, you're a little bit tired of Dean Ambrose and The Miz, but who do you think's going to come out on top of it?
I think that The Miz comes out on top.
Do you think the Miz-tourage is the catalyst for it?
I wonder what they're doing with Axel and Bo, but
not fucking much, to be honest.
Yeah, it's so sad. But yeah, I think The Miz retains. I think the WWE right now maybe doesn't have another good option for Miz. I mean, other than Ambrose, because you don't really want to put that title on someone like Finn Balor. I mean, that's a step back for a Finn Balor character, for a Seth Rollins character. So what do you really do? And that's where I said earlier, it'd be nice to see broken Matt Hardy against The Miz. And then I don't know where that leaves Dean Ambrose, but I am ready for that change.
Well, that's your thoughts on that. But what I'm ready for is possibly a change in the championship of the Universal title when we talk about Brock Lesnar defending the championship against Samoa Joe, which I gotta say, promo-wise and build-up-wise, this one has been friggin' amazing. Even with Brock Lesnar's limited schedule and his limited availability. Well, I shouldn't say limited availability, limited willingness to actually show up and appear. It seems like he's been there more lately. Do you think he enjoys this as well?
I think he does, and I heard some people say they didn't feel like the segment from this week worked, and that as a mesh, right, the two characters weren't on the same page. But I think that this is the best built feud we've seen from the WWE in a long time. I am excited to watch this match. I do hope Samoa Joe comes off victorious. I just don't think with the recent losses to Goldberg, you can necessarily book Lesnar as losing this match and losing the title again. It's an awesome feud, and it just goes to show that when the WWE, maybe try something on the fly, or I don't know who they're listening to backstage that made them go in this direction, but man, Samoa Joe is he has solidified himself as a superstar.
He's a legitimate badass. He's believable. And that's one of the things that people are missing and performers are lacking in this business nowadays is that believability. You look at Samoa Joe, and despite the fact that he's not the most muscular, you know that he's a fighter. You know that he's a tough guy. You believe that he could walk into just about any bar or any gym and knock someone the fuck out. Samoa Joe is the real deal in my eyes.
I'm going to say that I've got Lesnar winning, And then I've got another comment to make after you give us who you think is winning.
No, I unfortunately, I've got Lesnar winning. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I have no problem with Lesnar. He seems to be pretty adaptable to just about anybody he can work with. He doesn't talk very often, but when he does, he makes sure that it actually matters. He is a quality performer, but I'm ready for a change that I know I'm not going to get right now.
Going back to your point about being a legitimate badass and, not having to be the super, muscular, like Ultimate Warrior type body or whatever to prove that you can get behind someone and choke the friggin' life out of them. One of the things that we were talking about over the weekend, we spent some time together while you were wrestling all of those Six Flags shows that, are sponsored by Pro Wrestling Blitz. One of the things we talked about is I listen to a lot of Jim Cornette lately. Was listening to some of the best matches that he thought, were out there for consumption. Went back and watched Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, Memphis 1981. An amazing match. And I was talking to you about it because it's like, man, they did not do much of anything other than punch and kick and choke and elbow each other and a couple body slams and a couple atomic drops. And, it was a lot of fists flying and it was such a believable match. And you posited that today's world, can you have one of those type matches? And I wonder, is this proof that you can?
I don't know if it's proof that you can or you can't. It's a wait and see situation till the match actually happens. I think that Orton and Lesnar were a decent sign that, we're on track, that maybe something like that could be accepted and maybe something like that could happen. I just don't know that if, given the way the internet is, given the way people are nowadays and what we know about the business, if people can show that much emotion and get that much behind it as the crowd you would want them to be.
I don't know this is the direction you wanted to take the podcast, but I'm steering the ship now, so sit back. At the end of the day,
consider
as we're talking,
my feet the fuck up.
At the end of the day, as we're talking about this, right? You are about to get into a fight with two former UFC stars, right?
Two UFC Hall of Famers.
Right. Philip Baroni and Stephen Bonner, right?
Or as I like to refer them, Stephanie Bonner and Jabroni Baroni.
Are you going to be doing a lot of, flips? Or is it going to be revival style? Is it going to be fucking fists, not flips? I think so. So it goes back to my point is that's been a well-promoted match. I think people are interested to see. TMZ Sports is picking up interviews with, Bonner talking about it, and it's because people want to see a fight, right? And wrestling is a fight. So we're going to see you guys, brawl it out. But at the end of the day, I think it'll be, much like this match. It's going to be a lot of submission holds. It's going to be a lot of punches and kicks. And man, I kind of miss that style of wrestling sometimes.
No, here's my take on it. Win or lose, it's not going to be pretty. And you're right, there's not going to be a lot of flips. There's not going to be a lot of fanciness. This is going to be more catch can than anything else. It's not a UFC fight. We're not out trying to sell it as that, because we are totally different products with almost completely different fan bases. But what you are going to get on July 16th is going to be quite different from anything you've seen in professional wrestling in quite a while. And if you want to come check that out, it's very specifically, the show is called Fight or Flight, Sunday, July 16th at Inman's Bowling Alley, 3201 Evans Avenue in Valparaiso, Indiana. Doors open at 1 o'clock. Myself and Machine will be taking on Stephen Bonner and Phil Baroni. And that's your main event.
No, and to your point, right, I don't mean to position it it is a pro wrestling match, but it's tough, and pro wrestling's tough, right?
It is tough. There's stuff about it that's kind of burned my biscuits on this one, like the fact when Stephen Bonner did the TMZ interview, he didn't even have enough respect. He didn't even have the balls to say my or Machine's name on there. All he had to say was, I have a wrestling match July 16th at Inman's Bowling Alley in Indiana. He can't even take, because here's the thing. It's his first real wrestling match. And there's no respect for the men that are going to give him a name in the business. He was in the UFC. He's done there. He's gone there. He says people, when he retired from the cage, they asked him not to go. Well, hell, man, go back. Nobody wants you here. This is professional wrestling. This is totally different. You're already shitting on the people who are giving you a name. Guess what? You're getting a hell of a lot of money because you're getting in the ring with me. You're getting a hell of a lot of attention from TMZ that you haven't got since you left the UFC. And you know why? Because of me and Machine. At least have the respect to say my name, bitch.
No, all I can say is I hope Bonner and Baroni have taken their bumps. They've thought about what's going to happen to him in that ring, because I'll be honest, you took me, right, I'm hanging out with Pro Wrestling Blitz. I love Pro Wrestling Blitz. Tony Scarpone, the Scarpones, awesome to let me kind of see things happen behind the stage. And you guys have people that you're training, right? People want to be pro wrestlers. I mean, it's a huge, growing, popular industry. And so as you're training people, we went to a gym and got to do some training with another wrestler that I took some bumps and it was horrible. I don't ever want to do it again. It hurt. For the people out there that think that wrestling's fake, wrestling might be predetermined from a storyline. Hey, you're going to fight this guy, you're going to fight that guy, and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, when you step in that ring, there is nothing fake about how your body feels when you step out of that ring.
Hey man, you felt it firsthand what it was like when Warwick Stevens gave you your first body slam in an actual ring for the first time. And you were there this past week on 4th of July, when even after the 6-man tag team match I had done with myself, Ben McCoy, and Al Snow working together, you heard how many times Al said, Jesus, man, they were beating you like, they owed you some money, or like you owed them money or something, man.
You guys put on 6 shows in 3 days for the people at Six Flags. They're very well attended. They're very well put together. Superstars like Mordecai, like Al Snow join the program.
Even former WWE superstar or SmackDown WWE superstar Ryan Braddock was there.
Yeah, and we should say, and I keep saying Mordecai, but I mean Kevin Thorne, right, is the wrestler, and he rocks
a phenomenal American flag romper.
It was all really good, but you guys take a beating, and there's no doubt about it. So I hope Baroni and Bonner are ready. Who knows? Maybe It's a Work will be there. Maybe we'll have a microphone. Maybe something will happen. You never know.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and I want to urge you to make a generous donation to the Wayne Foundation so we can stop the sexual trafficking of children. Do it, or I'll find you, and I'll really fuck you up.
So moving on from the WWE, we've got other professional wrestling news. And what I want to talk about next, Ian, is the fact that Anthem Sports has officially not only purchased TNA Wrestling, but they've also now officially purchased Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling and are combining the two finally into one. We've kind of all seen this coming. What do you think?
I think it's interesting that the takeaway with Slammiversary over the weekend that I had was really the renaming of the company. And I've heard other people say this, and I would agree. Jeff Jarrett really, he is the one that comes out on top, leaving TNA and then going to start another company, and then having TNA bring him back as the creative head, and then buy that company, and now TNA is being rebranded as Global Force Wrestling, with the TV show being called Global Force Impact.
Jeff Jarrett kind of looks like a business genius at this point in professional wrestling, doesn't he?
He does, Does Jeff Jarrett maybe make some of the mistakes, or was he part of some of the mistakes that happened that led TNA down their path of demise? How long before Jeff Jarrett brings in Jim Russo or wants to get back on TV and be in front of the camera all the time? Do we see that scenario playing out?
To be totally honest with you, yes. I think Jeff Jarrett has come to the terms with him, the fact that his career in the ring is done. I think if he wanted the spotlight, he would be back in the spotlight already, and he's doing a very good job of staying out of it and giving others the spotlight. When it comes to, was it Jarrett that made the wrong moves? No. I really don't think that Jarrett was the reason for the downfall of TNA, as you would say. I think the only problem that Jarrett had was not having the financial backing and having to turn to people at Panda Energy and people like Dixie Carter, to where he had to give up power to keep his dream alive. So he had less power. Now he's got good financial backers. He's got people that understand that he knows how to run this company. He knows what the people want to see. And I think for lack of a better term, Jeff Jarrett has returned as the savior of TNA, which is now Global Force Wrestling. Honestly, look at it though. Back when TNA started, they had a good pay-per-view deal. It was good enough where people actually bought it for $10 once a week on pay-per-view. And it moved from pay-per-view. It got a television deal. It's been on 2 or 3 different networks. But it was solidly on Spike until Jarrett lost control of the company to Panda Energy and the Carter family. That was the downfall of it. It was getting into the hands of people who didn't know what to do with this product, simply because Jeff Jarrett didn't have the money or the financial backing at the time. He didn't make any wrong moves on the screen. He knew what he was doing. He built new stars, and he brought in the right people from all around the world. The man's a great talent scout. He's a second-generation wrestler. His dad was an amazing promoter that was even respected by Vince McMahon at one point. And there was a point when Vince McMahon was on trial for the steroid charges back in the late 80s, early 90s, where Jeff Jarrett's father, Jerry Jarrett, was on deck to come in and take over the company and run it for Vince McMahon if he went to jail. So that tells you the kind of man and the kind of mind that these people have for this business. They weren't the downfall of TNA. It was unfortunately having to hand it off to others that was the downfall.
Well, congratulations to Alberto El Patron for, winning the global or the unified championship, right? Beating Bobby Lashley over the weekend. But again, my takeaway was more around the name change than the actual work that's going on in the ring. And I know we're going to save this for the next episode. G1 and NJPW dominated the news cycle, and for good reason, right? I mean, I think we both really like that product, going back to the earlier conversation around kind of a stronger style of wrestling. But I will say, as we've had Cody Rhodes open our show a couple times, telling you how much he enjoys listening to our podcast, I did steal something from the new Ring of Honor World Champ, right? I saw him tweeting out, and obviously...
Oh, God. I thought you were going to say that you stole something out of his bag while he was in the ring at the baseball park show. I stole an idea from the Ring of Honor World Champ, and he's obviously in great peak physical condition, being the Ring of Honor World Champion. So I stole his idea. I saw him tweet out that he eats Icon Meals. So Icon Meals, a company based out of Texas, prepares meals and sends them directly to your door. I got a 10-pack. It was delivered overnight. So now I've got, a week's worth of lunches and dinners. And I'll be honest, man, I had the beef brisket enchiladas. It was super good, super healthy, so I am trying to get back into it. Icon Meals is a great way to help me do that. And now that you've given them all this free promotion, they should send 10 more meals to one Mr. Tristan Hayes so I can try them out for free with my partner.
Yeah, no, they're awesome, man. So I'll definitely be ordering more and continuing to update you all on my progress with Icon Meals. And I think it's an awesome way, if you're always on the go and you don't have time to cook and you need something prepared or you need to bring something to the office to heat up. It was super tasty. So Icon Meals, man, Cody Rhodes turned me on to it. We tweeted at him today as I got my first delivery, and boom, there you go. So with that, I think we're moving on. Let's move on to greener pastures. Let's talk about
the Pro Wrestling Blitz update, which I would like to throw it by saying, hey, Tony, did you ever get that pretzel from Vinny? No, you did not. Tony Scarpone, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey guys, this is Tony Scarpone, and this is It's a Work Podcast. And check this out, you're about to listen to the Blitz Update.
All right, everybody, this one's going to be short and sweet. We've just got WrestleFest 8 coming up on August 12th and the Baseball Park show on August 3rd to talk about. And since I did those two out of order, I'm going to flip it around, and we're going to go to August 3rd first. So at Standard Bank Stadium in Crestwood, Illinois, right after the Windy City Thunderbolts game, and we gotta say weather permitting, because the last show with Booker T, we ended up under a very small tent during a downpour with Booker going, don't do it, dog, as the sides of the tent filled up with water, and he thought I was gonna dump it on him. So, let me move on and say that we have Al Snow coming in, and Al is going to actually challenge young Mr. Vinny Scarpone, who still at that time will have not brought his father back a pretzel. And he'll be challenging Vinny for the Pro Wrestling Blitz Standard Bank Stadium White Castle Bold Move Championship. God, that's a mouthful. Ian, help me out with this, brother.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. And it's hard to say when you're announcing a show in front of people. I'm excited to see Vinny take on someone of Al Snow's caliber. I'll be interested to see what Vinny can do. I've always thought he was a good worker.
Now, is caliber supposed to be referencing his talent level or his age?
No, I mean his talent level. I mean, Al Snow, listen, he's no slouch. We saw him in the ring over the weekend. He's obviously teaching, the next generation with his wrestling school. He looks amazing. He is fit, still active, and can go. And so I'm looking forward to a good match. I'll be interested to see if Al takes that title away from the entitled little prick.
And that's August 3rd at the Standard Bank Stadium, right after the Windy City Thunderbolts game in Crestwood, Illinois, weather permitting. But hey, you can come out, and even if there isn't a game, Al's still going to be signing autographs and taking pictures and telling jokes and pretty much just having a blast with everybody who comes by.
Yeah, Al's awesome. A ton of experience in the business. Obviously, spent time at the WWE, spent time at TNA, a wealth of knowledge. Even you and I were just talking about some of the things, some of the wisdom that he's imparted on you in regards to tag team wrestling. And I think, everybody should come out, talk to Al if you're a pro wrestling fan, get an autograph, and definitely a great personality for people to come out and meet, because who doesn't like Head?
Quick little story before we move on. This weekend, after the Pro Wrestling Blitz shows at Six Flags at Great America, we actually went out with Al on the 4th of July, and we rode some roller coasters. And Al, knowing that I'm not a very big roller coaster person, got me onto the Superman for the first time ever. But before he did, as we walked up to get onto the ride, he took my bag and he put his wallet in there. To which I immediately responded, hey, we're all getting the hell out of here right after this ride because I got his wallet. The joke was on Al, though, because as if I could have planned it, it couldn't have happened any better, because we rode the ride, we got off, and then everyone in our row, their harnesses released and lifted up. Al's was stuck in place. So there's me holding the bag with Al's wallet in it with the chance to run. But I stayed because I'm a nice guy, But his big muscular ass was stuck on the ride. It was kind of funny. So now we're going to move on to our final topic of the night, and that's the illustrious, the ever-promoted WrestleFest 8. That's going to be Saturday, August 12th. Doors open at 4 p.m., bell time 6 p.m. at the Edwards Event Center, 55 Phelps Road, Romeoville, Illinois, 60446. And you can check it out at www.pwblitz.com if you want to see the list of the stars and all the amazing matches and everything that's going to be going on that night. Woo! That's another White Castle Bold Move mouthful. We're going to have stars from all over the world, from Mexico, from Japan, from everywhere in the U.S. We're going to have people like Daga, Serpentico, Damien666, Extreme Tiger, JT Dunn, Laredo Kid, Angelico, Kurt Stallion, Paul London, former WWE Tag Team Champion, former WWE Women's Champion Gail Kim, former WWE Intercontinental Champion, formerly known as John Morrison, now known as Johnny Mundo, and so many more. And you can even catch yours truly in a TLC Fans Bring the Weapons match. That's right. After all my pushing and prodding, Pro Wrestling Blitz has made it official. The fans get to bring whatever weapons they want, and we get to beat the shit out of the congregation with them. Which, again, will be August 12th at the Edwards Recreation Center.
Got my tickets for WrestleFest. I'm tuned up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see the blacklist. I want to meet and see how many of these different stars you guys are bringing in we can get on the podcast. It's been great so far. Booker T coming up on the next episode.
That's right. We do have Booker T on the next episode, and we talk to him about a variety of topics that are not only fun, but actually hit an emotional nerve with him in a good way. So if you want to come check it out, make sure you look for episode 5, which will be coming very soon. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a work.
Scary. No, I'm excited about Wrestling Fest.
Wrestling Fest hosted by Jim Russo.